Welcome. A special welcome to Reverend Carol Wolf. Reverend Wolf attended Eden Seminary after serving as religious education minister for the First Unitarian Church in St. Louis for 10 years. She has ministered to 3 congregations over the course of her 14 years as an ordained UU minister and retired in 2010. Thanks to Cedro Grice Salazar and Linda Pollock for offering musical support this week. And welcome to you all. I hope you are reveling in the waning days of autumn with its boldly blue skies and its leaves that have the courage to let go. Today's call to worship is entitled, "There is a Quiet Courage" by Reverend Gretchen Haley. There is a quiet courage in the choice to let go of the past, in the choice to be present in this new day, to live for this hour, this moment, and to believe in its possibility, to release the regrets, to stop the spinning stories of what was and is no longer, to accept this gift, to believe that we are worthy still of happiness, of ease, of delight and hope, to believe we have all we need to heal already, and to receive this wholeness with ready hearts and open hands, saying only, "Thank you." Come, let us practice this surrender together, gathering up all the brave boldness we know can be found in our bones and blood if we breathe together, knowing ourselves as part of this one life filled with mystery, creativity, and power, changing us, growing us, and calling us into partnership with all that is. Come, let us worship together.
Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all there is and all there is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love, love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames we rise.
Covenant lies at the center of how Unitarian Universalists gather in community. We are not united by a particular set of beliefs, but by the promises we make about how we will be together, how we will treat each other, and how we will seek to mend relationships when we fall short of our aspirations. Today, we'll recite a brief version of our covenant. I encourage you to read the full covenant on our website. While the following words express our intentions in writing, our true covenant lives and breathes in our actions. Please join me now in reciting the words that appear in your order of service or in the chat on the live stream. We covenant together to create and nurture a culture of respect and kindness, and to engage in the spiritual and everyday practice of loving more generously. To this end, we will strive to be open, value differences, listen deeply, use kind language, speak our truths, work with conflict, and seek humor and joy. Please rise to sing hymn number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Quick show of hands. How many people here had a safe place where you would kind of go to get away from the world, either now or when you were a child? That's almost everybody. A lot of people refer to this place as under a literal or a metaphorical blanket. And that is the message for all this morning, under my blanket. When I am under my blanket, nothing scary can come in. Under my blanket, my flashlight is the center of the galaxy, my own little star. My imagination orbits like planets ready to be explored. Night is bright, and day is more than just the memory of the things gone right and wrong. Day is something to look forward to. When I am under my blanket, I can read way past bedtime, while my parents pretend not to notice. But I know that they know that I'm faking sleep when they turn on the light. I see a lot of parents looking at their kids like, It's a game we play. Which one of us is going to smile first? Under my blanket, I am unafraid. I find my voice, and I tell the dangers that chased me under here to leave me alone and to go face their own fears. Maybe they should go spend some time under their own blankets. And they should only come out when they can be nice to me and to themselves. Under my blanket, I'm completely safe. But you know what? I'm also just a little bit lonely. So I carefully pull up one little corner, and then another, until there's room under here for those I love. I wrap the blanket tightly around us, but then I realize I need just a little bit more room. Room for trees, for meadows, for playgrounds, for friends, for friends that I haven't met yet, for ice cream and festivals and birthday parties and running just for the sake of running. In fact, I lift all four corners of my blanket higher and higher until my blanket is made of sky, and we're all safe beneath it. Any children and young people are welcome to come out now to their classes as Christopher leads us in a song to sing the children on. Hold down a blessing. Hold down a blessing. Hold down a blessing. Hold down. Hold down a blessing. Hold down.
Joys and sorrows. Frank Jonitz is home after a week in the hospital for medical reasons. He would appreciate cards and your best wishes. Please contact Jamie in the office for Frank's address. Today's spoken meditation is entitled, All That We Have Been, All That We Will Become, by Lisa Ahuva Fales. All that we have been separately and all that we will become together is stretched out before us and behind us, like stars scattered across a canvas of sky. We stand at a precipice, arms locked, together like tandem skydivers, working up the courage to jump. Tell me, friends, what have we got to lose? Our fear of failure? Our mistrust in our own talents? What have we got to lose? A poverty of spirit? The lie that we are alone? What wonders await us in the space between the first leap and the moment our feet, our wheels, however we move our bodies across this precious earth, touch down softly on unknown soil? What have we got to lose that we can't replace with some previously unimaginable joy? Blessed are you, Spirit of Life, who has sustained us, enlivened us, and enabled us to reach this moment. Give us courage in our leaping and gratitude in our landing, and share with us in the joy of a long and fruitful ministry together. Our offering today. Today's worship theme, Convicted by Courage, offers the opportunity to ponder what it means to be a person of courage, as well as a member of a spiritual community. The word courage comes from the Old French courage, and from Latin cor, meaning heart. To have courage is to have heart. And to have conviction is to be committed to what the heart knows and needs. Each of you are the heart of USNH. Together we give each other heart to continue the righteous work of creating a more just and loving world. Please be as generous as you are able. Collection plates are waiting to be filled on your way out of the sanctuary. Our donate button on the website is awaiting your clicking, and a check in your checkbook is awaiting mailing.
Thank you, Jesse and Thedro. That was really a wonderful treat to have that live music. I'm very glad to be here today. It's my pleasure to see this place all renewed and restored from the last time I was here, which was probably, I don't know, 2002, something like that. It's really beautiful. Well, I'm going to talk about the courage that we have by being convicted by courage. And the well-known phrase, the courage of our convictions, brings to mind a piece of work that was going around in UU circles and youth groups many years ago. It was called, "If You Were Accused of Being a Unitarian Universalist, Would There Be Enough Evidence to Convict You?" It was very popular with youth groups, especially my group in St. Louis when I was the RE director, and my group produced a play enacting a trial where each person had to plead guilty or not guilty and give a reason why. Now, we as UUs are not proselytizers, nor are we evangelicals, far from it, because we tend to keep our thoughts and beliefs to ourselves and rarely, if ever, rise to the challenge of that difficult question, what do UUs believe? And how do we tell others about our way of doing religion? You, all of you, by virtue of joining this congregation, have shown great courage by your commitment to our principles and purposes, and hopefully by living a life convicted by them. Not to mention the courage and dedication it took to create this beautiful worship space. And you certainly should be proud of your 70 years here in New Haven. So what exactly defines courage? Jeanette just read what it is. The very word comes from the heart. Cœur is the French word for heart. It comes from the gut. It means follow your heart or find another way to make a brave decision. Courage is the virtue which champions the cause of right, and to exhibit it, we must experience a little danger and difficulty. So if you were on trial for being a UU, how would you plead? What would others say about you, and how would the jury prove you were guilty or innocent? How would you testify? Well, of course, I believe, as UUs tend to do, we would cite rhetoric, intellectual freedom, reason, and history, because that's what we are proud of. The courage to be a UU is not that hard, but yet we shy away from people who confront us with accusations of being wishy-washy or of having no clear identity, no holy text or commandments to follow. We do have the purposes and principles, but how many of us have them memorized? Our courage has to come from a place that is sacred to us and articulate enough to be understood by others. My internship supervisor and mentor, Reverend Kendall Gibbons, narrowed it down to this elevator speech. This is the church where you don't have to say anything you don't believe or believe anything you don't understand. This is the church where you don't have to say anything you don't believe or believe anything you don't understand. That's the best, most basic sentence of our way of doing religion I have ever heard. It even works for children, and as a former RE director of 10 years, I enjoyed sharing it and discussing it with the kids. It was easy for them to understand and memorize, and one little girl added, "and be nice." Having the courage to say it, much less live it, is the thing. We fear confrontation, and this statement usually will calm it down, because what's to argue with? Courage is closely tied to fear, and that is the conundrum. When we are afraid, we are not feeling very courageous. Moral courage is what we are talking about here, and we ask if it can be learned, because in today's world, we sorely need it in the face of so many moral issues that are dividing us. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face." In his book, Moral Courage, the author Rushworth Kidder states, "If moral courage is not simply innate, so that some have it and others don't, how can it be nurtured, taught, practiced, and attained?" See how his suggestions fit with your ideas for attaining moral courage. He says you have to have greater confidence in principles rather than in personalities. Think about that. You need a higher tolerance for ambiguity, exposure, and personal loss. You need the acceptance of deferred gratification and simple rewards. And you must accept and nurture independence of thought. And you also need to possess formidable persistence and determination. Confidence in principles rather than personality is very much along the lines of what many non-UUs ask us. Who or what do you worship? Not a deity or any other being other than our own understanding of what it means to be human, I would say on the stand. High tolerance for ambiguity. I once had a congregant say she wondered why I was always talking about the search for truth. She said she knew her truth and there was no longer any need for searching. I said, well, then you're a fundamentalist. Really, it's true. Independence of thought, the very core of our heritage, free to think and reason on our own. And persistence and determination. Have you ever sat on a building committee? All of these suggestions imply a freedom that demands courage to carry out. There are many examples from history of heroes and heroines who showed tremendous courage in the face of fear and who meet all these requirements. But many of us are truly courageous, and not as these people who only used physical strength to uphold moral issues. Our courage comes from our heart. And I'm not going to talk about them today, because most true heroes and heroines have been well documented and honored. We can measure courage simply by using the question of the day. If accused of being a UU, would there be enough evidence to convict you? I want to tell you about someone you don't know very well. I think she was pretty courageous. I was a heretic for as long as I can remember. Growing up in the lovely Methodist church up the hill, I still have my 12-year perfect attendance pin, all linked together by a year culminating in a special one for confirmation. I never believed a word of it. Don't get me wrong, I loved going to church and Sunday school, but by the time I was old enough to question, around first grade, I never missed an opportunity to do so. There was something inherent in me that just did not believe any of it. I knew it wasn't true, and I wanted no part in it. Fortunately, my parents were not very religious and let me be myself. Even so, on Sundays, which were set in stone, my dad and I walked up the hill together for Sunday school, and my mom stayed home to get ready for church. So, one Sunday, she was in her room, brushing her hair, all dressed and ready to go, and I appeared at her bedroom door, having been released from my 5th grade Sunday school class. "What are you doing home?" she said. "Well," I said, "I didn't believe Jesus could walk on water." And Mrs. Cease, who was also the junior choir director and an important part of my church participation, threw me out and told me to go home and examine your faith. What? And to not even come back to class or to choir practice until I did. Oh no, I was just devastated. My wonderful, intelligent mom quoted to me her favorite writer, Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "Carol, no one can make you believe anything without your consent." Boom! The universe opened. I think I was in such shock that she supported me. I mean, she usually did, but this was really revelatory. And I didn't know it, but right then, a Unitarian was born. So I guess I was one with moral courage from the beginning, as even in first grade, I wouldn't say anything I didn't believe, and was also admonished for it. I wasn't facing fear, actually, but rather condemnation and the chance of being unaccepted by my group. And that event led to a 50-year dedication to UU principles and purposes that were crucial to bringing up my two sons. I never wanted them to feel guilty, as I did, for questioning or doubting. They are both now very liberal, independent adults who think for themselves and never hesitate to explain our way of religion, and will argue all day about their right to do so. My younger son will even ask on a first date what her religious background is. And ironically, a couple of times they have said, "Oh, my parents were Unitarian. I was raised a Unitarian." He just can't get over the magic there. And my older son is also dedicated, but to his religion of music, whose wife is just as much a heretic as I am. They both exhibit courage in the way they are raising my grandchildren, by choosing to live in a way that honors the earth and respects others. Their fear for the future, as all parents have, but would surely be convicted of having UU values, which are upheld by being courageous to speak them. A lot of non-UUs claim that our beliefs are nothing more than moral imperatives, and not that different from what Jesus and Buddha taught. The absence of God language disturbs them, and they don't understand how we can have a religion without a God figure, much less a creed, to prove what we believe. Ding, ding, now is the time for the rhyme, deeds, not creeds. And sometimes that helps puts a reference to our P&Ps, purpose and principles. If you can remember them, then we need to explain that we are held to these purposes and principles by a covenant with one another, which we just spoke. Not any other powerful entity. We are on our own to uphold them by setting an example, and also that we are not trained to fear any powerful entity that doesn't exist for us. We are taught to seek our own truth. And again, that fact that we don't use the Bible exclusively makes them squirm, these non-UUs, and we have to say, well, the word for us comes from many sources of all humanity: literature, poetry, music, etc. Well, then the jury wants to know what our reward is. You're on trial here, and they want to convict you of something that they see as wrong, not the mainline way of doing church. So how will you be punished? What do you teach your children? And I always say, to question is the answer. We are free to search for answers as we see fit. We are not told what to believe or who to vote for from the pulpit. In fact, if any minister is doing so, she is breaking the law regarding separation of church and state. Sadly, this whole thing has fallen by the wayside nowadays, and ministers just seem to be political informants. So when courage shows up, it is in instances when you feel fear, but it pushes you to act in spite of being scared. Courage doesn't eliminate fear, it just makes your fear less limiting. It puts fear on the back burner. With courage, you're fearful, but that fear doesn't stop you. Unlike the primal emotion of fear, courage, then, is a willful thought process that allows you to overcome it. To gain courage, you must have to face your fears and come out on the other side enough times to convince yourself that you shouldn't hold back just because you're afraid of speaking your truth. If you do this enough with the smaller things that scare you, you'll be better equipped to conquer bigger things, the bigger things in life that provoke the deepest fears. Our intellectual freedom to think for ourselves from an early age gives us confidence and the courage to speak up with our own truth, not some truth that someone else has forced us to speak. Now, courage is not the absence of fear, because you have to have fear to have courage. I'm just questioning the order in which it comes. It's important to acknowledge your fears, and being courageous often requires selflessness. Fear, on the other hand, is what we feel when we sense a threat to our inner self. Whether that threat is mental, physical, major, minor, real, or perceived, when this emotion arises, it can provoke underlying mental health conditions such as anxiety, panic, and phobias. And courage is the one thing that we need to work on to overcome them. While fear is something we try to avoid, it actually plays a protective role in our lives. It helps us recognize and avoid potentially detrimental threats, pain, or harm. It also ignites our fight or flight response, prompting us to take appropriate action if needed for survival, like when someone asks us about Unitarian Universalism. Everyone fears something. This is something you're born with. A lot of fears are tangible, such as bugs and heights, but people also have psychological fears, like failing or being alone. You can probably easily list off some of your fears, but others may be a bit more difficult to recognize if they're deep-seated. Either way, it's important to acknowledge your fears and to be able to overcome them. And so perhaps FDR was right. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Now that's all fine and good, but I'm wondering, what if your fears are concerned with basic daily human needs? Fear of being homeless, fear of going hungry, or not having enough money to feed your children, or pay your mortgage or car insurance? The fear of the unknown, no matter what it might be for all of us, these are not imagined fears. They are very real, and there is no amount of courage that can allay them. Well, except maybe for finding the courage to ask for help, which I think is the hardest courageous thing to do sometimes. And for those of us who may not have any of these truly serious fears, the answer to have courage to help others and help them face and solve them is the answer. It isn't magic, but real help, not just money or donations to a food bank, but actual courage that requires physical, financial, and one-on-one help in whatever form you can afford to offer it or maybe receive it. The fear of asking for help is what is a roadblock for many people. We need to have the courage to assure them that asking is not fearful, but very courageous. When someone needs help, we must be courageous enough to offer a helping hand, a bag of groceries, or pay a bill. There are, of course, agencies out there that are operating just for this purpose, and they probably agree with our description of being UUs through our purposes and principles, and they're defined by action, not necessarily belief. And Sir Winston Churchill said, "Fear is a reaction, courage is a decision." I really, really like that. You can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you cannot choose both. Fear triggers in us a sense of weakness and insecurity. Courage silences your inner demons and gives life to the voice of reason within. In order to be convicted, we have to exhibit courage in times of anxiety and fear. By doing so, we eventually become convicted of our powerfully inherent courageousness. It's there, we just have to do it and not be afraid to do it. So, how many of us would have a guilty verdict and be proud to have gotten it? How many of us are not afraid to speak the truth of our faith to others who don't understand? How can we become guilty of having courage because we are totally convicted of our personal beliefs and religious rights? If powerful bullies want to intimidate us, we have to turn and face the fear and speak our truth with utmost courage. Especially in this time of coming elections, I want to remind you that voting is an act of courage. Don't be afraid. Go out and vote and have the courage to tell people about this place and these people. It is a worthy conviction if you are a person courageous enough to be a Unitarian Universalist. Uphold your convictions and be brave. Ask for what you need. Give of yourself what you can, and have the courage to get up and do what needs to be done with conviction. Well, the trial is at an end, and hopefully you have been found guilty of being a Unitarian Universalist, and you're sentenced for life. Now we'll sing hymn number 12. All right?
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Go in peace. Live simply, gently, at home in yourselves. Act justly. Speak justly. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Forget not your power in the days of your powerlessness. Do not desire to be wealthier than your peers, and stint not your hand of charity. Practice forbearance. Speak the truth and speak out. Take care of yourselves as bodies, for you are a good gift. Crave peace for all peoples in the world, beginning with yourselves. and go as you go with the dream of that peace alive in your heart. So may it be.